Do you think Lincoln Riley can be to the Pac-12 what Urban Meyer was to the Big Ten in terms of upping the ante in the conference? You know, Urban Meyer did that in more conferences than just the Big Ten. He did it in the SEC too. Now, people in the SEC would always tell you, we've always dominated college football. Well, they've always been up there. But I remember vividly when Urban Meyer came to the SEC. He had never coached down there. He had never been an assistant down there. And he comes to Florida by way of Utah. And I remember listening to some people close to me say, Urban Meyer's about to find out what SEC football is about. He's about to teach this conference a lesson. And the only entity that got taught a lesson was the SEC. Because Urban Meyer came and he played a brand of football they weren't ready for in the SEC. And he recruited in such a manner that they weren't ready for in the SEC. Urban Meyer was born to coach in the SEC. So he did it there. Then he took those principles and he applied them at Ohio State. And he did the same thing there. And so the question is, okay, well, if that's happened before, can Lincoln Riley do that? Can he replicate that on the West Coast? I absolutely think he can. Yes. I think that's what you have to hope and dream for. You have to look and ask yourself, what's been wrong with USC football? What's been wrong is you haven't had good enough players. And then you haven't developed the players that you've had. But really, it all starts with, as we often say on this program and on Late Kick Live, there's only so good a meal you can make if you've got subpar groceries or if your pantry is empty. And so Clay Helton's out, Lincoln Riley's in. I want to know, what kind of groceries are we working with? How full, how stocked is that cupboard in that pantry going to be? Because if it is, then here's the twofold benefit you have. As a USC fan, of course it means you're about to compete for Pac-12 championships, college football playoff appearances. That's a given. But here's why it's a good thing for you if you're a Utah fan or if you're an Oregon fan, because this sounds counterintuitive. You think to yourself, no, I'm an Oregon fan, I'm a Washington, Arizona State fan. I don't need USC taking it to another level. Yeah, you do. Your conference does. You absolutely do. See, I would now direct your attention back to the SEC, but I would direct your attention to Alabama and Nick Saban. It's an age-old question in the South at this point. Has Nick Saban been good for the SEC or bad for the SEC? Well, Auburn University won a national championship in 2010. I'm a believer they wouldn't have won it had Saban not been at Alabama. Saban and Bama won a national title in 2009. I think it put such immense pressure on Auburn University that they dug deeper than they ever had before. And they won a title because of it. I'm a big believer that you got a higher level of competition out of programs like Ole Miss, out of programs like LSU. I think Kirby Smart is at Georgia, and I think Georgia ultimately just won a title because of Nick Saban's presence at Alabama. Now, so you can look around and you can say, no, Saban's been bad for the SEC because he's dominated them. Or you can look around and speak relatively, and you can look at the individual status of each of those programs, and you can say, wait a second. If the average program in the SEC is investing more than they ever have, and they got better facilities than they ever have, and they got bigger staffs than they ever have, and they're recruiting at a higher level than they ever have on average, what else do we think caused that? You will not realize how good Nick Saban's been for other programs in the SEC until he retires. Well, what you want is you want that to be duplicated on the West Coast. Even if it means USC winning a national championship, you want to make sure that it's good for you if you're Washington or if you're Oregon State. You want to make sure if they're going to win down there either way, let's make sure the pressure that it applies on the conference is felt in Corvallis or Tempe or anywhere else up and down the West Coast or even in Salt Lake City. Let's make sure that if they're going to have a winner there, let's benefit from it as much as we can. And that's exactly what they did in the Big Ten when Urban got there, in the SEC when Urban got there, in the SEC when Saban got here, and that's exactly what they need to do on the West Coast in the Pac-12 with Lincoln Riley.